Welcome back to Square State Sandlot. Bill's joining me as per usual. We have a lot to talk about tonight, mostly NFL related. With that being said, we'll knock a few things off in the baseball world. I don't have a whole lot. I'll go ahead and just throw my 2 cents in, and then we'll have Bill talk about his A's and how miserable he is. The Buccos are basically, we're winding down. Handful of games left. They're starting to call up a bunch of players and letting them get some, big league time, which is cool. It's fun seeing some of the farm guys. But as far as what that translates to for next season, I think you'd have to be part of the brass to know that. So just enjoying watching them play. There's still guys, doing well. Colin Moran's playing well. It's, season's about done. It's about all I got.
Yeah. Well, first I want to start off just by saying I obviously got into a fight with the Razor one. So don't mind my ugly mug for a few days. But
I
yeah,
don't know what that's like.
the A's were officially eliminated from playoff contention as of yesterday. They lost their 12th game in a row to the Mariners, which is pretty much unheard of. I think that's the longest streak ever in our franchise history for losing against an opponent. Mariners are not. I mean, they're a good team, but they're not up to where
You
we
shouldn't
should
be
have
losing
been.
like that.
And
Yeah.
had we split those 12 games with them, we'd be right there with the Astros that just clinched tonight. They clinched the division, which is disgusting, but we'll get past that. Yeah, I just not a huge fan of the Astros. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Rays clinched. Chicago White Sox, they were the first ones to clinch their division. Um, Yankees are 2 games ahead for the first wild card spot, and then Boston and Seattle are tied for the second wild card spot. And then Toronto's 1 game out from the second wild card spot. So one of those 14, or I guess 2 of those 4 teams are going to make the playoffs. Looking like the Yankees are in a pretty good spot, although they are facing the Rays. Rays have already clinched, so don't have a ton to play for. In fact, they already secured the best record in the AL. So I don't know how much they'll have to play for in that Yankees series. So the Yankees might even get a couple easy games to win because they're not, like I said, the Rays aren't going to be trying to win, I don't think. And Seattle's playing the Angels minus Ohtani pitching. So I think those will probably be the 2 teams is Yankees and Seattle. I'm really hopeful Toronto can sweep Baltimore, which they should be able to do. They're a much better team. Baltimore's one of the worst teams in the league. I'm really hoping for Toronto and New York to make it. Well, I don't want New York to make it at all, but they're going to. And then I want Toronto to be in there as the second team. So the A's, not much good to say about them. Obviously, they really whimpered towards the end of the season when that's typically when we have the better second half. I kind of had a conversation on Twitter with Dave Stewart, which is one of the A's great pitchers, and he's now one of the broadcasters. He's also an agent, and he's got his hands all over baseball. And I just kind of said to him, what happened in the second half? And he said his theory is we were rolling guys like Cole Irvin out there and James Caprillion that have never pitched that much in the big leagues. And once they hit that 120, 150 range of innings pitched, that's when their arms started to get that dead arm period, and they weren't able to overcome it. And at that point, the bullpen had to start pitching a lot more innings, and then that obviously affected them in a negative way. And that's kind of my theory as well, although on the offensive side, we had a lot of struggles with runners in scoring position and just clutch positions like that where we're usually exceeding expectations towards the end of the season. So it was a very un-Oakland-like finish, and I fear that this may be the end of our competitive stretch where we always have these ebbs and flows where we compete for a few years, and then once the team starts to get more expensive, ownership says we need to reduce payroll, and GM has to ship out all of our good players for prospects and in hopes to compete in the next 2 to 3 years. So I think this is going to be the start of that, because we have a lot of guys that are coming up on their contract years or arbitration where they're starting to get a lot more expensive. So I would expect this offseason for us to ship off Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, probably Canna. He's getting a little more expensive. Bassett's still under arbitration control, so they could bring him back, and I think they absolutely should. But he's going to be a little more expensive, and they're already at their 80 million plus payroll where they don't like to go above. So I think we'll start to see that come crashing down here pretty quick. And the A's don't typically do like a rebuild like you guys are doing, where we tear
Yeah.
it literally to the bones. We usually just do the reconfigure a little bit for a couple years, and then they're back competitive. But our farm system is nowhere near what you guys have, so it's going to take some big trades to build that back up and get some good prospects in our system, and probably 2 to 3 years of struggling. So as an A's fan, I'm used to it, but coming off the highs, it always sucks going through, because you know what's about to happen. So like you said, very depressed about that situation, but definitely expected it coming in. So obviously won't be surprised when it happens. So with that, my question to you is, who are we rooting for in the playoffs?
So, I mean, to start off with, anybody with the Brewers, I think. But I think I got a soft spot for Chicago. I'd like to see the White Sox do well. Man, I don't know outside of that.
Except for that
I really
damn
don't.
manager.
Well, of course, we know you love him, but
Um,
um,
yeah, this is hard for me because can't stand San Francisco. They look like they're going to be
right,
the best team in the NL, although obviously the Dodgers made some huge moves at the deadline. Um, really expected them to overtake San Francisco, and honestly, I was just counting on San Francisco to come crashing down at some point during this season, because they were not good last year, and now they have 104 wins this year. So that's obviously
yeah,
not expected, not a turnaround you typically see, but Farhan Zadehi, I think is how you say it. He came from the A's organization. He was very, very skilled. They didn't want to see him go, but obviously wanted to let him have some opportunities. And San Francisco scooped him up when they saw how good he was, and rest is history. He turned that team around in 2 years. So very impressive work by him. Got to respect that. Milwaukee took a tough blow with one of their pitchers yesterday. He punched a wall and broke his hand, and he's probably out for the
yeah,
rest of the playoffs. So that sucks for them. I think from the East, or the National League, I would say the teams I'm rooting for: Milwaukee and Atlanta, and then on the AL side, like I said, Toronto, Tampa Bay. Those are probably the two teams I would be cheering for.
yeah. I mean, it's easy to also get behind the Rays just because it's awesome how they do business,
For sure.
and I mean,
Yeah,
it's cool seeing them in that position year after year. So
you gotta respect what they do, and it's very like how the A's do business, which is why I have a soft spot for them every time they make it to playoffs. Obviously, they've been a lot more successful than we have in the playoffs the last few years. So, hoping
yeah,
they can take the World Series this time. Um, they look like the team's best prime to match up against one of those National Leagues teams. So as long as they can make it through, that's great. But also really cheering for Toronto because of Marcus Semien, uh,
right.
Vladdy Jr., uh, Bo Bichette. Like they've got a lot of exciting young players that are fun to cheer for. So that would definitely be my second choice in the AL, or 1A, 1B. So you know what we just did right there?
Boom.
We just officially eliminated the Rays, Blue Jays, Milwaukee and Atlanta from the playoffs. So I apologize
Absolutely.
to any fans of those teams in advance.
They are all doomed. God damn it.
So let's get on to the standings. Probably a sore subject for you. Got off to a hot start,
No, I
and
mean it's early.
where do we stand now, Kyle? I'll let you read those off.
John and Bill are both sitting at 32 and 16, so they had a pretty good turnaround on me, and I'm one game behind, 31-17. I mean, it happens. I had a lot of games. The Giants actually burned me 2 weeks in a row off some real stupid shit, to be clear. Um, I mean, one was a guy jumping off sides, and one was letting the game go late. And I mean, there's a couple other ones that bit me, but it's still basically neck and neck, so you can't really ask for more than that.
Yeah, no, I was
I'm really not
surprised
that upset.
how close it is after these 3 weeks, especially with me taking a 4 game deficit there right off the get go. I thought it'd
Yeah.
take me a few weeks to overcome it, but only 2, not bad. But
Yeah, that week 2 was rough for me. So
yeah, week 3 was, I think I only missed 4 games. Picked
it's
the
good.
Falcons beating the Giants and all that, so worked out well. But
Bullshit.
I wanted to ask you. You're coming off a nice little visit to Pittsburgh. Obviously, game didn't go how you want, but why don't you tell us a
No,
little bit about your trip, and then we'll get into the how you're feeling about your team.
it was a pretty quick trip. We were actually going for my wife to continue her tattoo there in Pittsburgh, but it was really cool. I was able to take my brother-in-law to his first game ever. Definitely had better seats than I was at my first game.
Yeah,
So he had a pretty good experience. And uh, I mean, like you said, the game didn't go how he wanted, but it was really cool seeing some of the players. And, we made it on TV, so he was thrilled.
yeah.
Um,
I wish they would have been showing that game in our area because I wanted to look for you, and it sounds like I would have seen you. But
you definitely would have. I mean, it was pretty quick, but still, we made it, so that was fun. But outside of that, honestly, the trip started horribly. Our first flight was 2 hours delayed, and we ended up getting into Pittsburgh about 12 hours later than we were supposed
ooh,
to for the first day. So, um, a bit of a rough trip, but it ended well. We went to the game. We got to experience Heinz Field, which was really cool. I loved being there for that for his first game. And the crowd was amazing. It was a really cool crowd. We were kind of smack dab in between a lot of season ticket holders, and just a good vibe. So even despite the loss, it was a lot of good people. So um, all in all, really good time. Happy to be home, but uh, I love Pittsburgh. We love going. So that's about it for the trip, I guess.
now let's talk about your team.
Okay. I see you have a question for me.
I do.
I'm guessing I know what it is, but go ahead and lay it on me.
Okay, so obviously everyone's quite down on Big Ben. That's literally
For sure.
every like they're putting all these losses smack dab on him. I think that's obviously minimizing what's going on. You got a lot of injuries, new offensive line, so expected to be some early struggles. I expect them to gel a little bit more towards the middle of the season, and start to look a little bit better. But obviously Ben doesn't look great either when he's
No.
basically getting hit as soon as he grabs the ball. Um, One interesting thought that I heard was this offense is stalling under him. You already know what you have in your backups. They're both essentially
Yep.
Big Ben clones, play style wise. So there's a free agent out there, has a little bit different play style, goes by
This
the
is
name
true.
of Cam Newton. Just interested in your thoughts on even if you want to stick with Ben, if you think it'd be worthwhile bringing him as a backup, and in the off chance Ben's hurt. Obviously, we know he's already got the pec injury, uh,
Right.
but if you got to rest him a couple weeks, or if the intention is to move on from him middle of the season. You already know what you have in your backups, and they're not going to win you too many games. So, thoughts? Go.
All right, I guess I'll start with your Cam Newton question, and I'll kind of give you my take on where I think we're at. But as far as Cam Newton, I'm a big pass. I know there's talent there. I know that he's done things in the league that are commendable, but I don't think I don't think he fits our locker room, and I don't think he comes in and changes things all that much. I would honestly rather give someone like Haskins a chance to come in. He's more mobile with his feet. He still fits the system, but then adds that element to our offense. I would rather see him come in, see what we got. With that being said, I'll give you my take on where we're at. Watching the game live, obviously, being there down on the field, basically, I was up close and personal for a lot of those plays. I'll save Big Ben for last because that's obviously the touchy one. But I would say that our issues right now can be broken down into basically 3 or 4 things. The first thing that was a pretty hot topic this week was drops. There were a handful of drops in that game. Some of them do not land at the receiver's feet. They were some bad throws by Ben. There's some reasons for that, but there was some bad drops. Namely, Eric Ebron dropped a horrendous pass. The media afterwards tore into Najee about dropping 4. He was targeted 19 times and caught 15 balls, and they wanted to talk to him about his drop balls when he basically carried us all day. So I was a little fumed, I was a little upset with how the media handled that a little bit, but so namely drops. It was a problem last year, and it's kind of made its way back into our offense, and so that's something that needs shored up for sure. Secondly, our offensive line obviously is not up to par, and it was beyond obvious that they have no push in the trenches. We had no movement at the point of attack. If you watch back on that footage, we just don't have. When I look for an offensive lineman, I don't necessarily care about size and leverage and all that stuff. Yes, it's important and it helps, but I want the nastiest, just grittiest offensive lineman I can get. I want guys that don't quit. I want guys that are chippy, and we just lacked it. Even on simple run plays, Najee had contact behind the line almost every single time. Everything that he got in that game, he fought for basically on his own. With that being said, it's a young line. They haven't played together very much. I agree with you. I do see them gelling more as the season goes on. I'm not in panic mode. I don't think this whole season is a wash, even though there are a lot of people that are going down that road already. We have some areas of concern that need fixed. But, the drops, the line. Thirdly, the defense. Yes, we were beat up. Yes, TJ Watt didn't play. Would that have been a different game? Sure. He's the kind of player that makes an impact like that. But Pittsburgh's not a defense that should have performed that bad even without those starters. We have some guys like Devin Bush, Schobert that got brought in. Our linebacking core made no wow plays in that entire game. We never even put Burrow on his back that whole game. And that's an issue for our defense. Our defense is based off of sacks and quarterback pressure. People like Cam Hayward, when we're not getting pressure anywhere else, he's a stud. He always gives his all. I absolutely love Cam Hayward. But he's minimized because they're stacking guys on him, and that basically took away our push on the line as well. So I would say that's another layer to it is our defense. They have to perform. It doesn't matter who's not playing. You have to have guys stepping up. So I'm a little disappointed in the defense, obviously. Lastly, the Big Ben situation. It's a sore subject because I absolutely love Ben. He's been one of my favorite players for a long time. He's such a unique. I mean, he's a unicorn in the league. Quarterbacks aren't built that way. They aren't like him. I think he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He obviously brought 2 Super Bowls to that city. That being said, if anyone other than Big Ben was in that game, that second interception, which may be one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen thrown, he would have been benched had it been anyone else. So with that being said, I absolutely love Ben. I do honestly think this will probably be his last year in the league, or at least with us. What that means as far as how much playing time he has down throughout the rest of the season, I don't know. Again, I'm not in panic mode already. I think if that line starts gelling, he's going to be more comfortable because he doesn't have time. But with that being said, in that game, he held onto the ball so many times. He wasn't even doing his usual pump fakes. He just held the ball and held the ball and held the ball. It led to a lot of sacks, and it killed a lot of our drives. And then that last pick he threw to that linebacker was absolutely horrible. I mean, we're talking less than a 10-yard throw, and he put it right on his numbers. So I guess lastly, I would say I think you will see a backup step in at some point during this season. Will they take over completely? I don't know, but I do think that Ben's already beat up. We shouldn't have him out there with a hurt pectoral, still trying to sling it, still trying to take over games. At the end of the day, we just got a lot of work to get done, got a lot of work to do, and I don't know. I hope they're up for the challenge. I know Canada took a beating for his play calling, and yes, there were some horrible, horrible calls as far as how our offense went, but a lot of it was just not executing on the player side. So all in all, I think Steelers have a lot of self-reflecting to do this week, and I hope they bounce back and play Green Bay well. That's a tough place to go and play. So I don't know. Did I cover enough?
I think you hit on pretty much everything I was going to say. I would get Ben out immediately until his pec is ready to go, and if he's the quarterback for the rest of the season, you don't want him playing 50% or even 75%.
No.
His arm strength isn't what it used to be, so if he's playing at a even less than 80%, he's probably not going to be able to make a lot of the NFL throws and get it there in time.
I
So
agree.
I would
I do
say,
have. Oh, sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, you got to get him healthy if that's your plan for this season. You can't just run him out there. So
The last things I would say, one positive thing is Zach Banner's getting closer to returning to our offensive line, and he is a mauler. I think he's going to be a guy that can light a fire under the rest of them. So I'm really hoping that happens. And then the last thing I'll say is my 2 rookies that I've been high on since the draft was obviously Najee, and then my boy Pat Freiermuth. I'm really pleased with what I saw out of those guys. Najee had no quit in him all the way to the end of the 4th quarter. I mean, he was hot. He was jumping over guys, breaking tackles, doing everything he could, and did it with the right attitude. I absolutely think he's an amazing pickup for us. He's going to be an amazing back. He already is. But when we get a line in front of him, he's going to do great. But the last thing I want to give a big shout out to Pat Freiermuth for catching his first NFL touchdown. I was so happy to be there for it, and we needed it at the time. So yeah, my rookies I'm really pleased with, so I'm hoping that's something to build on.
yeah. Well, and I think I was reading a stat that said something along the lines of Najee Harris is getting hit behind the line on, I can't even remember what percentage it was, but it was, I want to say it was like 70% of his carries he's
Yeah,
getting hit
it's
behind the
the
line.
highest percentage in the league, which
So
is
obviously
not an award you want.
no, it's not a good sign for your offensive line, especially when you're allowing as many quarterback hits as well. So
Yeah.
did want to mention that linebacker was none other than Logan J. Wilson, a former Wyoming Cowboy. He had 2 picks in that game, and I think he has 4. No, he leads the league in interceptions at 3, and he's a
I didn't say his
middle
I didn't
linebacker.
say his name because he's dead to me right now.
He is not dead. In fact, he just picked up his
Uh,
3rd win of the season over the Jaguars. So um,
yeah,
let's take a quick break right there, and then we'll come back and talk about my Raiders and a couple signings around the league, and then
let's do it.
our picks for Week 4. So be right back with you. All right, we're back, and we're going to talk about my Raiders that are obviously off to a pretty good start. They're the first team to start the season 3-0 against opponents that were 10 win teams in the previous season. Obviously, Ravens, Steelers, and Dolphins. This latest game was another one of those nail biters. Went down to overtime, and in fact, like I blinked and we were down 14-0. It was not great. Our first offensive possession, I believe, Carr threw. No, I think I can't remember if he threw a pick on our first possession or second possession, but I think it was second. So anyway, first possession didn't go well, punted, and then defense played pretty well, shut them down, and then we were driving on that second drive of the game. Carr threw that pick six, so we were down 14-0, and really all the momentum in the stadium was quiet. Didn't look like it was going to be a good game for us for whatever reason. And then Gruden goes for it on 4th and 1, and even though we're terrible on 4th and 1, runs right up the middle. Especially, we got kind of the same offensive line situation going on as you guys. It's a completely revamped
Yeah.
offensive line. Got a rookie on the right side. Denzel Good is out for the season. He was our right guard, so we've got John Simpson, our backup right guard. He's on the left guard. And then Illuminor is our backup right guard. He's starting. Andre James, first year at center, first year starting. Just cluster.
Yeah.
The only thing we have is the left side. So obviously we're not getting a push. He runs it on 3rd and short, doesn't get it. Goes for it on 4th and 1, doesn't get it. And this was on like our 30, so not a good decision.
No.
And yeah, it was just putting us behind the 8 ball all the first quarter. And then for some reason, Dolphins punt. We down at the 1. For some reason, they throw a screen pass to the wide receiver in the end zone, and we get a safety. Casey Hayward sniffed it out, tackled him in the end zone. So it's 14-2, and that was kind of a point where I look at the momentum really shifting. It looked like we were going to be down and out, and that really turned it around. We get the ball back, go down, kick a field goal. It's 14-5. And we basically just scored, I think it was 25 points unanswered or something like that. I think they kicked a field
It was a
goal in there
lot.
somewhere. But we looked really good. So at that point, I was very confident we're going to win this game. And then John Gruden, for some reason, inexplicably gets ultra conservative in his play calls. We haven't run the ball very well all game. Peyton Barber had a great game, but I think he had 2
Yeah.
carries that went for like 60 yards, and then he only had 50 on the other 18 carries or whatever he had. So um, it was really just hit and miss with the running game, and it has been all year. In fact, Carr leads the league by a healthy margin in passing yards. I think he leads by almost 200 yards because we've been
Yeah.
passing so much. Looks like Jacobs is going to be back, but back to this game. We Jacoby Brissett was getting rid of the ball really quick, so I think we only had 1 sack and probably only a couple quarterback hits or hurries because he was getting rid of it so quick. But on that last drive of the game, he was holding on to it, dancing around in the backfield, completed a pass on 4th and 20 to extend the game, and I mean, there were several times I thought we had it locked up and just gave it up. And on fourth
Oh
down
yeah,
in the red zone, he jukes one of our linemen and scampers in for a touchdown. And then they get 2-point conversion, force overtime. We get the ball, just driving. Looks like we're going to just walk into the end zone, stalls out, kick field goal, give up a field goal. And then we got the ball with roughly 2 minutes left to go. Carr leads a great drive down into the red zone. Uh, Barber has a good chunk run at the end and puts us right where Carlson likes to kick from, and he knocks it through for the win. So obviously we're 3-0, won that game 34-31. It was like I said, tale of two quarter or yeah, really two halves, but first quarter and fourth quarter Dolphins played well. Second and third quarter we played unbelievably well. So I don't know.
yeah,
You obviously can't complain about 3-0. That good teams win games, win close games, and that's what they did. So a lot of things to improve upon. Like I said, we have an offensive line that same situation as you guys. We got a lot of injuries. Just really need some time to gel. And Andre James at center has been a short of a disaster, but pretty close. He snapped a ball over Carr's head in all 3 weeks. Luckily, Carr was able to recover all three of them, but every single one of those drives we've ended up having to punt, and they were good drives. Uh,
yeah.
so it's clear that he's a guard that's been converted to center because, I mean, it's one thing that like if you're a center and you can't snap, but he also isn't blocking well in the run game or the pass game. So it's and the frustrating thing about him is like okay, we moved on from Rodney Hudson, which is one of the best centers in the history of the NFL. So
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be a drop off even if you believe in the young guy. But not only did they replace him with or replace Hudson with Andre James, they also extended him before he even played one snap at center. So
Wow.
it's not a huge contract, and I get what they were doing. If you believe in him, sign him before he becomes expensive. So I get that portion of it. I do, but they didn't have to extend him this season. They didn't even have to extend him next season. He's under contract. So it was kind of a leap of faith, and really I think it was just Gruden and Mayock saying, "We believe in what we're doing. We don't care if you believe in what we're doing. This is our plan. We're going to stick to it." Luckily,
Weird. That doesn't sound like them at all.
no, it doesn't. Um, but anyway, it's not a huge contract, so if we end up having to move on from him, it's not going to be something that stops us from doing it. But it's
Right.
obviously giving him this I don't know the stability and saying, yeah, we believe in you. We're going to let you try to learn. Um, but at the same time, you can't let your season get derailed because of bad snaps. Because if Carr doesn't cover those fumbles, there's a good chance we could be 0-3 as close as our games have been. Well, maybe not against Steelers. I think at that point we had pretty much put the game away. But, you know, the Ravens and Dolphins, both of those are overtime
Oh yeah.
games. One possession definitely could have swayed it. So um, it's just a lot of good, but definitely things to grow on. And I think that's the thing that excites me the most about this is last year we definitely would have lost the games against both the Ravens and the
Yeah.
Dolphins. So I'm seeing some progress, and we honestly haven't played as well as we are capable of playing, especially missing Josh Jacobs for the last two
Right.
games. And saw him in practice today. He looked healthy. He was making cuts. And last time you saw him, didn't look good at all. He was coming off the field limping after every run he had. Looked, I don't want to say slow because he's definitely not slow, but you could tell he was hobbled. Um, so it'll be good to get him back. Obviously, Peyton Barber had, like I said, 111 yards and a touchdown on 20 carries or so. So that's a good day. But I think if Jacobs was in that game, they probably would have had even more because the Dolphins don't have great run defense, unlike Steelers and the Ravens from the previous 2 games. So, like I said, things to build upon, things to be excited about. Yannick Ngakoue, he was literally exploding off the line. So that tells me his hamstrings feeling a lot better. And
Good.
I'm very excited to see what they do against Justin Herbert, him and Max Crosby, and then obviously the interior line has looked pretty good as well. So, big game coming up against division rival Chargers on Monday night. So, definitely be tuned in for that. I don't know what to expect from that game. They're usually pretty close, so we'll see. I did see that 74% of the sold tickets were to Raiders fans in SoFi Stadium, so it'll be a blackout, another home game for the Raiders, so that'll be good to see. But I think that's everything I wanted to talk
about. The only thing I would add for your Raiders is I do think you guys are at a bit of a crossroads right now. Usually that's, in more of a negative light. Like you touched on, a season ago, you wouldn't have won a lot of these games. I'd say that's the one thing I'm the most impressed with is you guys are still getting gut checks. They're not always pretty wins. You're still getting popped in the face, but the difference is, the team's not going down. You've been, out of a handful of games already, and the team's fought back in. So, being 3-0 is 3-0. I think this Charger team is going to be a good test too.
For sure.
I think there's a lot of similarities there. And obviously being a division game, there's a little more heat on it, but I don't know. We'll see. I think, man, if you guys go 4-0 and honestly, if you guys go 4-0, there's still a lot of room for the Raiders to improve. So I don't blame you for being excited. There's a lot of things to be excited about because you guys aren't. You're not healthy, and again, like you touched on with your line. So I would say that's the biggest thing I see is that you're at this crossroads. But we'll see what the rest of the season looks like because you guys have started out well before in seasons in the past, and it's faltered. So that's why I say a bit of a crossroads, but I feel like you guys are doing well enough that it's not going to repeat, past seasons. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm hoping you do well.
We were 6-2 last year to start the season, and ended up going 3-4 the rest of the way. No, that's not right. Whatever. We ended up 9-7 after a 6-2 start. So I've definitely seen them falter down towards the end of the season, and obviously that could still happen this season. But I think we have a lot more to help carry us through because last year Ruggs and Edwards were pretty much their seasons were a scratch, and you've already seen Ruggs come up with huge plays in back-to-back games. Brian Edwards has more overtime yards than he does in the regulation, and fourth quarter.
I don't know if that's a good stat.
Well, we've been in 2 overtime games so far out of the 3 games, so. But he's taking over in the fourth quarter and overtime. So that's clutch time when you go to typically your best weapon, and you would think that would be Waller. Hunter Renfrow he freaking torched Xavier Halliday, not Halliday, Xavier Howard. And that was
unreal.
One of the best cornerbacks in the league, and he just absolutely made him look like a fool. So lots of weapons for the Raiders. As long as they can keep that line, and I think if they can keep Josh Jacobs healthy, even if that means limiting him to 15, 20 carries a game, or touches a game, not even carries, just having him healthy and able to make those plays would make all the difference in the world. So offensively, obviously I'm excited, but defensively, Casey Hayward, Rashad Perryman, we got him in a trade for almost nothing. Or we might have signed him. No, we traded for him.
I think
Or was it a free agent? I can't remember. We brought him in.
Now. I was thinking free agent, but either way, he's there.
He's here. He's playing out of his mind. Obviously, Yannick Ngakoue has been a huge factor on why Max Crosby on the other side can get to the ball because he's getting a good jump too. They can't just focus on Max like they did last season. Interior line looks really good. We lost McCoy. He obviously had a PED suspension as well, so not only is he out for the season, he's not going to get paid for the next 6 games, so sucks for him. Feel bad for him. But then you have Nate Hobbs. He's the highest rated rookie in PFF for defensive backs. And then you
He's playing
have
good.
Trayvon Mullins looked really good. He had a bonehead pass interference in the end zone in the last game that really gave the Dolphins life, but he's looked really good. Had an interception against Ben. Yeah, so that's one thing. If our defense can just be middle of the pack, and they've been better than that so far, that's really gonna help the team. So obviously, like I said, I'm excited. Don't want to get too excited because I've seen those epic collapses by John Gruden in the second half of the season, and he always gets so conservative with such a minuscule lead. But hopefully he learns from that this season and just keeps pedal to metal and puts the games away because that's what we need. But division news, obviously the Chargers beat the Chiefs, so they're actually last in the division right now. They haven't looked great on either side of the ball, honestly.
No, they haven't.
Obviously, when you have Patrick Mahomes, you feel like you're in every game, and they have been. But defense has not played very well. And then I feel like Mahomes is pressing because the defense isn't playing well, and he's forcing a lot of passes that he normally wouldn't. So I think that's probably the reason they're 1-2. They're definitely not hitting the panic button. However, they did make a signing of Josh Gordon over the week. I don't know. I can't remember what day it was. Tuesday maybe. But he is one of those electric players. But I saw a meme on Facebook that said that the Chiefs signed Josh Gordon to a 3-touchdown, 450-yard contract, and then he'll get suspended again.
That's so funny.
However, I don't believe they test for marijuana during the regular season now.
Yeah.
So he might be all right.
So I got to say, it's kind of flows into our next topic as well, kind of combining the two with Richard Sherman going to Tampa Bay. I get really this is the kind of stuff that on paper you're like, okay, Josh Gordon's been out for a while, blah, blah, blah. You can make all these reasons why this is a dumb pick. But this is like what the Patriots used to do all the time. I mean, I could easily see Josh Gordon going there and having a fire lit under him being with someone like Mahomes. And then here you got the Chiefs picking up a player like that for almost nothing. Richard Sherman's contract, I'm sure, is a little more than that. But still, like, it's literally the rich getting richer. Tampa Bay did this with Antonio Brown. He was obviously a shit show, mentally for us on the way out. And, Patriots, all that stuff. Well, then they end up with him, and all of a sudden he's got his
Pittsburgh.
I believe it was New England. And they ended up dropping him, and then didn't you guys have him for a little while?
It was Oakland first, and then New England.
Yeah, Oakland first. Right. Well, either way, obviously didn't pan out for all those other teams. But it's always these teams like this that I don't know how these deals find them. Because, yes, Richard Sherman obviously had a rough offseason, both football-wise and personal life-wise. But if he shows up and even is half the player he was before, I mean, you're adding to, granted, Tampa Bay's defense wasn't phenomenal last week, but they've played well otherwise. You're adding to an already, dominant team. Every time I see these signings, Belichick obviously was notorious for this kind of stuff, but oh man, it just drives me nuts that the Chiefs and Bucks get players like this for nothing.
Yeah. Well, Sherman, I think his deal was only $2.5 million for a year. Obviously, he's betting on himself to have a nice comeback, and then obviously putting himself in a good position to win. Tampa Bay, I think they have the 31st ranked passing defense. So obviously he's going to help him
Right.
out no matter what he does, even if he's a shell of his former self. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
frustrating. And Gordon, I don't know. I feel like he's still got something left in the tank, but at the same time, he hasn't played meaningful snaps in what, 4 years, 5 years. So
Long time. He was talented enough though that like if for some reason the stars align, it will be obnoxious that the Chiefs ended up with another weapon like this.
for sure. Well, and they've been looking for the replacement for Sammy Watkins essentially since he
Yeah,
left. So this
it's
might
true.
be it for them. I hope not, because I don't want to see the Chiefs get any stronger, being in the division.
Right.
Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I definitely excited to see what Sherman does. Obviously, he had his battle with the DUI and all that stuff, so he's still going to get suspended from the National Football League eventually, probably some point this season
Yep.
for a couple games because of the DUI. But immediately he's available to sign as the NFL connect or play as the NFL collects their details on that situation. So we'll see him probably suit up maybe this week. Um, and obviously it comes at a good time. They're coming off the loss to the Rams, so and going into New England, which should be a fun game for Tom Brady as his return to New England looms. One thing I did want to mention, I don't know, do you watch? So Monday night has split into, they've got the main broadcast, and then they have the Manning cast on ESPN2. It's not every week. In fact,
Right.
they're taking a little break until week 7, I believe, before they come back. So, but there was a star-studded lineup in the latest Manning cast. I can't remember the whole cast, but I want to say it was LeBron, Nick Saban. I can't remember who the third was, but then the fourth quarter was Chris Long, which is one of my favorite
Right.
podcasters, favorite former players. Uh, Still wish to this day that the Raiders would have picked him up because he's obviously Howie Long's son, which was a
Yeah, it
Raider
would have
great.
been fitting.
But on the on the Manning cast, Chris Long comes on, and immediately Eli starts talking about his playing days in Philadelphia, which Chris Long played the last 2 years of his career in Philadelphia. So Eli's talking about a 9-year-old that was saying bad things about his mom and giving him the double birds. And sure enough, gets onto the broadcast on live TV and just double birds to everyone watching ESPN2. Of course, Chris Long is a noted uh,
Uh,
weedy, so he dopes up quite a bit.
uh,
And so he said, I'm glad I could be Eli's bad influence to get some personality out of him. And, of course, Manning or Eli has to come on after the commercial and apologize for flipping off the national
right.
audience. And Chris Long is
Yeah.
just laughing through his apology. So it was a wonderful little segment that I got to see.
I do want to say that, I mean, honestly, if you don't enjoy watching Peyton and Eli, like, you just don't enjoy funny things. Like, they should put them on everything.
Yeah. Well,
Like, I think they are hilarious.
I mean, maybe. So I think it's about a 75-25 split of Peyton talking and Eli. Eli's obviously the more reserved of the
Yeah.
two. He comes in with some zingers, but most of the time it's
That's
just
what I
Peyton
mean. He
talking.
comes out of left field.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
my favorite thing about that whole broadcast is, like, you actually learn something watching it because you hear Peyton talking about, like, what he sees on the field,
Oh, yeah.
and he breaks down the coverages
It's very
and stuff.
insightful for
So
sure.
you get to see that side, but then obviously he's funny, charismatic, and then gets the best out of Eli because they're brothers. So uh, it's good. I still
Man.
enjoy the main broadcast because Louis Riddick is on there, and he's one of my favorite people
Yeah.
in football. So I still find myself flipping back and forth, but definitely tuned in for Chris Long being on there. So with that being said, let's get into our picks. We won't go through like we did last week and break down every single matchup. We're just going to talk about the ones that are probably the highest leverage ones, and then obviously our teams. So we got first off Cincinnati and the Jaguars. This game's already completed, but all three of us went with Cincinnati. It was actually a hell of a game if you watched it.
It really was. It started off real interesting for the
Yeah.
Bengals.
Yeah, Jaguars went up 14-0, and Bengals just looked lost on offense and defense really as well. Bengals came back and scored 21 in the second half, or sorry, 24 in the second half, and Jaguars only scored one more touchdown. So Bengals won on a last-second field goal, walked it off, like I alluded to earlier. Logan J. Wilson, third win in that division. Pretty good. So.
Just shut up. Just shut up, Bill. Anyways,
Three
next
interceptions.
game.
Two of those coming against one Big Ben. Want me to keep going?
As much as I love seeing Wyoming players do well, I'll have you know that we beat a Wyoming player week 1. I don't even feel bad saying it. Anyways.
Dewey had a near pick for the Jaguars, Dewey Wingard.
That's true.
Just missed it.
True. I do like him a lot as well.
He's a stud.
Yeah. Anyways, so all three of us, like Bill said, took Cincy. More of the same for the next handful of games. All three of us took Tennessee
against
Kansas City. Yes, Kansas City, Dallas, and New Orleans. All of us took as winners in those games. We do have a split. Well, I guess not a split since there's three of us, but Cleveland at Minnesota, or actually I can't remember who's home on that game.
Yeah, that's right. At Minnesota.
Yeah, Cleveland at Minnesota, which was kind of the deciding factor for me. They've been in a lot of their games. But Bill took Cleveland. John and I both took Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not.
We'll see how that shakes out.
That was a tough one for me because obviously Vikings just stomped Seattle, but I still don't know who Seattle is as a team, and I definitely don't believe in the Vikings. Obviously, in our last episode, I said it took me 5 seconds to pick Seattle over the Vikings because I don't believe in them. So we'll see what happens.
I'll have you know that I said it would be a game.
Oh, for sure, anyways. You did. And it wasn't. I mean, Vikings pretty much had that one won by third quarter, but it is what it is.
Yes, sir. With that being said, we also we were unanimous on the next two games, Detroit and Buffalo. I was really surprised, not by the Buffalo game, obviously. I really do think Buffalo will take the win against the Texans. I thought it would be a little more split on the Detroit-Chicago game. I know it's kind of, picking two bottom feeders to a degree, but
yeah, that one was tough.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Chicago's had 49 offensive yards in their last game. I can't remember who they played. It wasn't a great team. Was it Cincinnati? Who did they just play?
Cincinnati wasn't it the Bills? No, Bills played Washington. Who was that?
I don't know why it's so damn hard to look at previous games. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I got her. Oh, Browns. It was the Browns, and they got killed.
Yeah. So, fix your site, NFL. I don't want to switch through each damn week just to find who they played. Come on. Anyway. I picked Cleveland because I feel like they're a much better team. Or not Cleveland. Jesus. Detroit. Talking about Detroit.
They played a really good game.
They played very well in the first two games in the first half, and then just kind of fell off. They didn't have the guys to get it done. But in this last game, they took the Ravens to the ropes, and honestly, if it weren't for a bad call by the refs, they didn't call delay a game on the Ravens that should have been called. And then Justin Tucker beating the NFL record in field goal yards by 4 yards. He kicked a 66-yarder. Previous record was 62. So absolutely insane kick by Justin Tucker.
That dude is a stud, man.
So, yeah, it took the Ravens like an impossible feat to beat the Detroit Lions. And Detroit's looking really good. They've got that running back. Tyrell Williams, obviously, got hurt again, which I feel bad for that guy because he is an absolute stud when he can get on the field. But I can't remember who their
You got
other
to stay
receiver
there.
is that's having a great season. So just it looks like they're heading the right direction, and the Bears look like they're not heading in the right direction. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy, their head coach, was fired in the next couple weeks because that's how bad
Yeah,
they've looked.
I
Um,
think it's coming.
and honestly, it's such a cluster there. Like they have, he doesn't want to give up play calling duties. They have the offensive coordinator that's called some of the plays, and then they won't tell you who's calling the plays on the field, and it's just a
Yeah.
cluster. So I think he'll be gone, especially if they can't turn it around here in the next couple weeks. So that was my reasoning behind picking the Lions. I'm guessing you kind of had some of those same thoughts if you picked them as well.
Yeah, honestly, their record doesn't reflect how well they've honestly played um, across the board. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not saying the Detroit Lions are going to turn it around and be a surprise team late in the season.
No,
I just think that they're playing gritty football. They're staying in these games. So for them, I know it sucks that that's considered a win, even when you lose the game. But for a team like Detroit, that's big.
yeah, yeah, they're not giving
They
up,
need the moral victories,
and
right?
that seems to be what the Bears are doing. Like you could see players on the sideline saying this offensive plan is not working. Why? What are we doing here? So,
It's true.
but moving on, we got the Colts and Dolphins.
Yes.
This one, another tough
And
one for me.
I have decided to change my pick on this
Okay, I'm glad you got that in.
as of today.
As long as you get it in before we actually say who we picked, we're good. So, yeah, this one
Oh
was
yeah,
split. You and I went with, well, you just switched to, but you and I are going with Miami. John's going with the
right.
Colts. I wish he were here to talk about why, because honestly, Miami lost 35 to nothing against the Bills. They played us very well, and that, I was expecting that. Obviously, when you get waxed, you come back inspired and want to get that out of your
Yeah.
system. So I think they're a much better team than they showed against the Bills, and Indianapolis kind of looks lost, honestly. Um,
Well, and that's what changed my pick. I think honestly, Brissett. Did I say that right?
yep.
Their backup. So the main reason I went with this was Tua being out, obviously. But I made the pick, and then I started thinking about it more the last day. Really, um, he honestly played very, very well for his situation to come in against a team like you guys, who you guys have been playing well. He came in and he really stepped up to the plate,
For sure.
and I mean, he played a complete game. Obviously, they were in that game till the very last second. So
Yeah. He gives
that
them
was the big deciding factor for me.
he gives them a much better chance to win, honestly. Like I think Tua is going to be one of those busts. Like I hate to label him that, but I
I
think
think he's going to end up being like a what's his bucket in New Orleans?
Jameis.
Um, no, Taysom,
Oh, Taysom.
Taysom Hill. I think he's
I
going to
don't
be
think
a
he's that
package guy.
athletic, honestly. Like it, you would think based on how he played in college that he would be, but he's not that fast. He's not super athletic. He's oft injured. So, like,
I do think he's shifty though,
I don't see
and
the
I
upside
think in
in
the right
him.
packages he could.
Like, he obviously needs to develop, but he can't stay on the field, and that's going to stunt his development. I I think the only reason they took him is because he played at Alabama, and Alabama has not a great record of producing NFL quarterbacks. Obviously, you have Tua right now. You got Jalen Hurts in
Yeah,
Philadelphia, and then you have Mac Jones. Of the three, I think the one best position to have success is Mac Jones, and that's because he got put into a good situation. Um,
that's true.
but I think if you put either of the other two in the same situation, I still don't think they would have much success. So I I don't know. I think they're in a better position to win with Jacoby at quarterback. So that's also
I
another
agree.
reason I picked him. So um,
Um, moving on to the next couple.
yeah,
um, I'm not going to touch on this one. Washington, Atlanta. I have Atlanta going. John and Bill both have Washington. This was honestly just a. I'm hoping to pick up a pick on both of you.
yeah.
I think it's going to be a dumpster fire of a game, regardless. I don't really care about it.
I don't feel good about
Uh,
that one. I
I'm actually going to skip the next one as well, even though I know that we could talk about it a little bit more. But San Francisco and Seattle, I have Seattle winning. This was literally the exact same thing again. I'm hoping to pick up a pick on you guys, but it's a division game, which is why I was a little more comfortable um, going with Seattle as maybe an upset. Obviously, San Francisco's played
okay.
decent. I the more you made the comment the last time we talked, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that you were correct. That yeah, like on paper they've had success, but if you really watch the games, they're not overpowering. So I'm going to skip that game. The next one is the one I really honestly want to talk about the most because I think it could be primed to be a pretty awesome game to watch. We have Arizona and the Los Angeles Rams. Anybody that's listened, obviously, I'm super high on the Los Angeles Rams. Bill as well. Stafford is somebody that I I heard a lot of people in the media. I was really surprised by this. I've heard it on podcasts. I've seen it on things. I've heard people say that they've never been that impressed with Matthew Stafford, and that is absolutely mind-boggling to me because he was never in a good situation. Yes, he had Megatron. Calvin Johnson was a stud, but you remove. I mean, that was it. They've never had a run game. I mean, anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. Matthew Stafford's a stud. I love the Rams right now. I love the way they're piecing games together. I love that they took a hit like Cam Akers going down, and they've responded. That whole team is playing very, very well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I don't know what else to say other than that.
I love what they do with. Obviously, they got Aaron Donald wreaking havoc right up the middle. They can move him inside, outside, wherever, and he's gonna generate pressure. But they also have Jalen Ramsey. They're lining him up as almost a nickel backer, where he's just everywhere. And they're moving him
Yep.
around, putting him in good places to affect the offense. So yeah, I think they're doing some really good things on the defensive side, and then obviously Matthew Stafford can make throws that Jordan Goff couldn't make, and that's
No.
really to the benefit of.
And for my fantasy team,
Yes,
I got old Mister Cooper Cup,
yes.
and they have a rapport. Holy cow!
Now
It
the
is fun
Cardinals,
watching those two play.
they are also playing very well, doing it a little
Correct.
bit different. Obviously, they've got the offense. Defense doesn't look as good. They've got Chandler Jones that obviously is a great pass rusher. They've got J.J. Watt that, yeah, he's still there.
He can hold his end. Yeah.
But I think this one lines up well for the Rams because they're playing great complementary football on both sides of the football right now, and Cardinals not necessarily doing that. I think it's going to be
And
a
that
little
was
bit higher scoring than you would probably anticipate because Kyler Murray is just electric quarterback, and then obviously Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and they're just playing really well right now. So
that was the deciding factor for me is because, like you said, both offenses when they need to score, they find ways to score, and for that reason, I do think the score is going to be ran up a little bit on this one.
yeah,
I don't know what the over under is, but I would be inclined to go on the over
yeah,
just because of how this game could be. Um, the defense was the big deciding factor because I feel like when a stop needs to be made,
yep.
the Rams defense is going to do that before Arizona's defense
Well,
does.
and I would even go as far to say as Kyler Murray's probably going to try to force it when they're down, and that's going to seal the game
Yeah,
because as
that's
good as
true.
he's been and as good as he is, at the end of the day, he's still trying to carry that team to some victories, and sometimes that forces some interceptions or fumbles, whatever, just turnovers in bad situations. So, yeah, I took the Rams, you took the Rams, and John took the Cardinals in this one. So,
Absolutely.
moving on to your game of the week.
Yes, Steelers are going into Lambeau. It was unanimous. We all picked Green Bay. Obviously, my expectations have been tempered a little bit with how we've been playing. I also made this pick hoping that, it bit me and I took a loss here.
Yeah.
And somehow,
Yeah,
superstition, it got the Steelers a win. So
the way the Steelers
I
are
don't know.
playing coming into this
Yeah.
game and the way the Packers are playing coming into this game, it seems like it should be an easy pick. Packers are obviously coming off 2 big wins. Steelers not playing very well at the moment.
I will say this though.
TJ
This is
Watt's
one of
back.
those games. Exactly. This is one of those games that if, say, our defense gets going like it did against the Bills, um, this is one of those games that screams upset to me, and not just because I'm biased.
Yeah.
Green Bay is not the juggernaut they once were, so we'll see what happens.
All right. Moving on, we got the 2-1 Ravens visiting the 3-0
Yes.
Denver Broncos.
So this one came down to one thing, and I love that you touched on the 3-0. The stat that killed me last week or this week is the Broncos are 3-0 against three teams that combined are 0-9.
Yeah.
So I'm super happy. Everybody that's listened, I'm super happy for Teddy Bridgewater. I hope he does well, regardless. But I think this is that week where, this fairy tale beginning to this season is going to have a little bit of a stumble. So I am definitely taking Baltimore, as is Bill. John took Denver. I was a little surprised. I don't know. I wish he could touch on that for us, but fortunately couldn't join us.
Try to ask him. I think he said he should be available this Sunday, so I'll try to ask him about that before the game starts. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I do just want to say this could end up being one of those things where it's like for the college football where you schedule your cupcake opponents the first couple weeks of the season to get you in the full swing of things.
Oh, yeah.
But the Ravens do have some returning players that should help, and Broncos, like I said, haven't really been tested, so we'll see what
I
happens.
will say, though, if Denver does show up and pop Baltimore in the mouth, then people need to start looking at them as obviously a team.
I'd still pump the brakes on it.
I don't think it's going to happen. I
Because,
understand. Baltimore's also not the team they once were.
well, I think they will be, but they're missing two of their best receivers and so on and so forth. So until they really get gelling, I don't think they're they almost just lost to the Lions. So
Right, but they have a lot of talent on that team. So if Denver comes in and wins, this
I'm
is
still gonna be doing
the
air
first
quotes.
week.
Still gonna be doing air quotes.
Bill, they could be 10-0, and you're gonna air quote these guys.
You're
I get
goddamn
it.
right I am.
With that being said, we're moving on to our last two games. I'm not going to touch on the Tampa Bay game. Obviously, they're a well-oiled machine for the most part. We all have Tampa Bay winning that game.
Yep.
Lastly, we're going to talk about your game, which I'll let you go ahead and start off.
Yeah, I have the Raiders in this one, just knowing that Josh Jacobs is probably going to be back and playing in this game. If that's one thing that you can do to the Chargers, that's typically what they want you to do. Is they're one of those bend don't break defenses, so they want you to force something so they can turn the ball over. Asante Samuel Jr. has been playing great on the back end, so I think Carr will, I don't want to say revert back to his previous playing style, but I think he's going to be a lot more careful with the ball in this game, and you'll probably see a lot more passes underneath rather than trying to expand over the top. But we're going to have to establish the run with Jacobs and kind of force it down their throat to get them to respect the run and then start to throw off of that. So I've got the Raiders. I think this will be probably one of those 3-point games. I don't know what the spread is, but I would say if it's anything more than 3 points, I don't know. like I said, Raiders are going to have a home away from home game, so I expect the crowd to be into it.
Oh, they will.
Chargers coming off a big win against the Chiefs. I think they're in for a letdown in this game, and that's why I got the Raiders. And like I said, I think it'll be close, but probably 4 points will be the margin of victory for the Raiders. So, who you got in this one?
I was just going to say, with that being said, I mean, John and Bill both have the Raiders taking this one. And I was really close to doing the same. I honestly, for the exact reason you see them having, fallen off that high, them beating the Chiefs, I feel like they're going to ride this high into this week. And I just think that they looked really good in that game. As far as, at least in my opinion, and I see them continuing that at home. So
I mean,
as at home as it can be for them.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is Chiefs turned the ball over 4 times and they still only won by 7 points, 6 points, something like that. So
that's true.
Raiders aren't going to turn the ball over that much, and hopefully they can force some turnovers. These games are always so hard to pick because they're in a division, and it's always, you know what they're trying to do, they know what you're trying to do, so they're usually closer than you would expect. So we'll see. I hope you're wrong.
Absolutely.
Hope I'm right, and I won't be air quoting us.
Oh, gee dang. It only works one way.
Hey, we've actually beat some teams.
Oh,
so,
sorry.
It happens. All right.
That's true.
So with that being said,
I'd
everyone
say
go out
against us doesn't mean that much.
Diablo 2 Resurrected. Other than a little hiccup at the first couple days, launch was a little rough getting into the servers and all that, but game's fantastic, just like I remembered it. Obviously with updated graphics, ton of fun. Get it, play with me, everyone. Let me know.
I love it.
All right. Well, we'll get you off to bed.
I got one last thing to say before we sign off. I want to give a shout out to Raphael for throwing his picks in with us. He's a friend of mine from early middle school days, and he ended up moving away. And it was really cool. We actually reconnected here relatively recently through Facebook. So it's really fun seeing him hop on there, and he threw his picks up for this week. This is the first week he jumped on, so we'll have to figure out how we do that for the first couple to get him in the standings for the season. But
he might be the first person to win that $20 if he's the only one putting in picks. So we'll see what happens. He's got to be.
Yeah, I just want to thank him for putting picks in, and encourage anyone else to join us and hop in there.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we will get back with you on Sunday, I think, with John. Kyle,
I'll try to make it. I'll try to make that one.
All right. So we'll talk to you guys then. Appreciate you tuning in. As always, give us a shout out, like, share, all that fun stuff, and we look forward to interacting with you.